You guys, welcome again to another episode of the Can Church Be Healthy podcast, where a pastor, that's me, is talking to a therapist,
that's me,
Tom Page, and we get curious about this experience that we call the church and the fruit that it is currently producing here in the western part of the world. Tom, how are you, man?
Dude, I'm good. I'm a little bit bummed that our last shot at the IFS podcast didn't work out because we were vibing pretty hard on that.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. And everybody, you obviously don't know that happened. We were midway through an episode and I looked down and I'm like, oh, hey, yeah, it's a great conversation, Tom. But
but we're dead in the water right now.
It is not being recorded, which is weird, by the way. I mean, just think about that socially. Like if you're just out at a coffee shop with a friend, just having a great conversation, and then you realize, oh, wait, hold on.
We got to stop this.
This isn't being captured.
Yeah,
it's so weird, man. But hey,
this one will be good too.
Yeah, this one is being captured today. So glad about that. Hey, yeah, you just brought it up. We are discussing internal family systems today. And we're going to get into what IFS really is. But yeah, this is a whole field of study that I'm actually learning more about. But it is quite honestly, literally changing my life and my imagination and the way that I understand myself and the way that I interact with others, the way that I present myself to the world. And in fact, you and I just spent a solid 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Just being pretty vulnerable and tender with each other even before this thing got started today.
It was super sweet. Yeah.
Yeah. Just even talking about different parts of ourselves that are kind of presenting themselves to us in different ways. And so, yeah, hey, all of our listeners, beware, guys. You might get a tender side of me today.
It's all right, dude.
It's all good.
All of you is welcome.
Yeah, it's all good, man. Well, hey, when we jump into this, or as we jump into this, can you give us just a basic overview of internal family systems, what it is, why we should pay attention
Totally.
to this field of study?
And to kind of link it from what I remember from our last episode was we were talking about
last episode, recorded episode, or
last recorded episode,
yeah,
where we were talking about how most churches have this kind of high level framework up, in, and out, and you can imagine that as sort of a triangle. But if you imagine it as just the tip of the iceberg, and underneath it is this whole life, and depending on how healthy the subterranean life is, it manifests out. And so where certain, maybe on the surface, practices that are important to us in the church you think be healthy, if we're not healthy under the surface of our lives, then it can express in a really unhelpful way. And IFS it's just a clinical tool. It's not like a rubber stamped Christian, like here's a thing you can do, but it is, I've found, to be a very gentle and helpful way to get to dive deep into that subterranean part of our life.
Yeah, yeah.
So high level, is it okay if I give just the history again, because I feel like that's helpful?
Yeah, I mean, in the episode that wasn't recorded, I mean, honestly, man, we just pushed play on this episode and you just ripped off this beautiful history of it. So I'm curious to know if you could do it again.
It's just in me, I think. So this will be my best shot. So the history of internal family systems by Tom Page. So internal family systems was originated by a man named Richard Schwartz. So he is a very good family therapist, and that's what his training was. So in family therapy, you work with all of the parts of an external family system in the room all at once. And so it'd be mom, dad, kids, if there's, brother-in-law, whoever, grandma, grandpa, if they need to be in the room, you're working with this system. It's an external system. And he had great success with it. And he just thought, this is going to change the world. We change the system of the family. Relationships get better. This is great. I mean, for an example, everyone's in the room in his office. Let's say mom and daughter are trying to have a vulnerable conversation, but it's not going well. The family systems therapist would be trained to not only pay attention to that micro interaction, but the much larger interaction in the room. So they might scan over and see, oh, dad's like leaning in, he's got a scowl on his face, his arms are crossed. And that's actually part of the system that's affecting the whole. And so they might go, hey, Dad, I don't know if you realize this, but could you relax a little bit? What's going on for you? And so once the therapist helps Dad kind of back off, then you go back to this part of the system, and lo and behold, that conversation goes a lot better. And so you fast forward a little bit, and Richie goes by Dick. Dick found that for a subpopulation, family systems work wasn't really that helpful. And I think it was teenagers with like bulimia and struggling with disordered eating and things like that. And it just didn't move the needle much in their symptoms and how they were caring for themselves. And so as a good therapist, he just started to listen and go, well, you tell me, like, what is your inner world like? What is this like for you when you're encountering these things? And they started talking about parts of themselves, much like a family. Well, there's a part of me that tells me I'm stupid and I'm fat and I'm no good. And so then there's another part of me that feels really hurt by that. And then I go and I eat a lot to comfort myself. And then this other part comes in, I told you, you're stupid and you're fat and you're awful. And then I feel really sad and I hate myself again. And then I comfort with food. And then this just cycle happens. And he just thought, this is interesting. This sounds a lot like my external family work. Different parts of a system interacting and then creating a tension, a vibe, a distinct way of being in the whole of the system. And he thought, well, let me try to bring my family systems work internal and see if we can work with these different aspects of a person's inner world, help them relax, and see if we can affect change that way. Lo and behold, short story is, yes, you can. And that's when he started to develop this internal family systems work as opposed to an external family systems work.
Okay, right.
And so that's the kind of the history. Generally, the theory of internal family systems is that the personality of a human being is inherently multiple. That's normal, that's natural. And when we go through hard things, these different parts of our inner world can take on extreme roles. They can take on a very protective role to keep us safe, or they may carry a lot of pain and hurt. And if that pain and hurt is too much, we may actually like push those parts of ourselves away. And when we experience like certain behaviors we don't like, emotions that are uncomfortable, really what it is the tension and relationship playing out between these things.
Right.
So like if we both had an end of a rope and we were pulling on it, like where does the tension exist? It's in the dynamic. And so you just get one of those parts, you or me, to let go of the rope, the whole thing starts to change. And so in this work, he helps people name and connect with and care for various parts of their inner world. That could be lots of things: anxiety, depression, self-harm, addiction. These things take on different roles,
right,
in someone's life.
Yeah. So those roles in internal family systems actually there's 3 distinct roles, and they actually have these curious little names.
Yeah, they're corny, but they're true.
But they do work. And so I do want to ask our audience, like, if you're not familiar with internal family systems, like, bear with us, because this stuff gets pretty powerful. Just understand. Well, we were just talking about this. It's a little bit like Inside Out, the movie Inside Out. You know how those little characters are portrayed, in Joy, the main character, in her life, in her mind. Anger is personified, sadness is personified, joy is personified, and then here we are. We're talking about these different parts of us.
Yeah.
They have not those names, but different names, and they are. Exiles, managers, and firefighters.
You got it.
Yeah, exiles, managers, and firefighters. And I want to come back to the role of those parts of us. But first, can we talk about, as a baseline, can we talk about the true self and how internal family systems describes the true self? This is actually what gets really, really fascinating to me, and why, again, as a pastor, a person that is concerned, working in the field of spiritual formation, I care about this because I actually think that in the kingdom of God, the invitation from Jesus, who we are in Christ, is that our true self, who we are in Christ. I love, they have these 8 C's, right? So it preaches really, really well. So I'm going to take this bit.
Go ahead. Take it.
The 8 C's are this. So a person, when they are in their true self, what would it be, a state? Is that a loaded term? State? Is that a word?
So I
know it's a word.
I think Dr. Schwartz would say it's not a state, is different than a part.
Okay, so see, that's what I don't know. That's why, yeah.
It's that aspect of you which is not a part, it just is.
Yeah, okay.
And so they call it self.
Self, okay. So this self is the compassionate self, right? So compassion, curiosity, calm, clarity, courage, connectedness, confidence, creativity. So if I'm dialed into a person or a situation of feeling compassionate, my true self is there. Curious, if I'm feeling particularly calm and non-anxious. Clarity of thought, if I'm feeling courageous about a thing. Feeling connected to you, I'm feeling like I'm actually my true self in that state, Confidence, when I'm exhibiting like confidence in myself, other people, and circumstances. And then also creative. I love how that is a beautiful picture of who I want to be.
Yep. Yeah, me too.
And that's who I actually feel really confident when I am, or I actually do. I feel like I'm being my true self when those things are true of me, when I'm operating in all of those ways. It sounds really familiar to the fruits of the Spirit. And I know that you like to talk about that as well.
I love it.
Yeah. How do those feel and seem like the fruits of the Spirit to you?
I mean, to me, it just seems like different language for a very similar experience. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, self-control. I think I got them. And when I think of a way of being that like Jesus embodied and then invited us into, like that, it seemed, I don't know, I mean, I could be wrong, but it seems pretty close.
Yeah.
And one of the interesting things in IFS world, as they've done some, just taking data and research as they've worked with people, they found that working with people from different backgrounds, really anything, socioeconomic status, race, religion, country, your nationality, whatever, when people do the work of attuning, so turning toward getting to know different aspects of themselves, these parts that tend to be in very extreme roles, their anxiety, their inner critic, these things that have learned certain ways of being in a way to help us survive. What happens is that the intensity of those things tend to go down, and in the language of IFS, they say your part relaxes or gives you more space, and what's just left, like that people go, well, it's not a part, it's just this is what's left, are these things. And it's compassion, curiosity, calm, clarity, courage, connectedness, confidence. They have other words that they've added over time, but and this is a leap, and I can't prove this, but for me, being a clinical person and a spiritually minded person, a part of me goes like, did they stumble in some way across a way to help us access the fruits of the Spirit?
Right. See, and I'm like, this is what I care about.
That's wild. This is
why I know. This is why I pay attention to this stuff, because I think the Spirit of God is at work in all of these things. You know. So
it feels like it.
Yeah. Let's talk then about these parts. Okay. These parts that are when we're sort of outside of this true self, when these parts of us are kind of I don't know what would be a good word that you would use, activated, triggered, maybe. I don't know, maybe that word has other meaning for other people, but
trigger gets used a lot, but I think all of those are fair.
All right, so exiles, managers, and firefighters. I have a sheet of paper here. I'm going to read off what the exiled part of us really is. Well, first of all, can you just describe what an exiled part of us is?
So generally, an exiled part tends to be younger, more vulnerable parts of us that carry hurt or pain. And when we don't have the resources to stay present with that in a safe and sustainable way, other parts typically come in to shield us from that being present in our awareness. So they push out or separate, or a more scientific term is disintegrate. It's a disintegrated brain state, so that we don't have to live in that pain.
That part of you gets exiled.
It gets exiled from the whole.
Yeah. So this says, when an exiled part becomes activated, you may notice feelings of shame, fear, sadness, insecurity, depression, and loneliness. Core beliefs like I'm bad, I'm worthless, I'm unlovable, I'm defected may be on your mind. These parts come from our very painful experiences or traumas that we've unconsciously locked away, shielded by our protective parts, the managers and the firefighters. All right, let's talk about a manager. Describe a manager to me.
Yeah, so a manager I think a lot of times managers masquerade as what's called a self-like part. So it is the front that we lead with. And most of our the analytical part of us could be a manager, a critical part of us, anxiety, anything that tends to manage, be the sort of the first line of defense for anything that might feel unsafe or unknown or unmanageable. They manage this, and so they're often the front-facing parts of us, of our personality. They're trying, in their own way, they're trying to keep us safe and from being hurt, or from allowing all that's subterranean in the exiled parts to come out.
Right. So I'm going to read this again. The manager, when the manager part, quote unquote, has the wheel, which I want to talk about.
Yeah, driving your bus.
Driving the bus. I want to talk about the bus here in a little bit. But when a manager part has the wheel, you may notice worrying, overworking, people pleasing, perfecting, producing, performing, criticizing self and others, evaluating and controlling. How do your managers try to prevent pain? I notice a very significant manager in my own life many times can be, and I hope our audience is ready for this, a huge religious part of me. A huge religious part of me.
You got it. Yeah.
That is different than the part of me that is holistically living in the spirit,
Dude, I love it. It's true.
Yeah. And so we've talked about this before, and I even confessed this to the Gathering Network a few weeks ago at church. I said, hey guys, I just want you to know, we have this space where our true self can come be in this place with God, because God is not anxious about us today. He's not looking at us like we are a problem to be solved. And I said, but I need you guys to know that every Sunday morning I wake up and there is a part of me that wakes up that needs this, who I am in this particular moment with you, to be great. I need this to go a certain way. Not for you, not for God, but for me. I need to perform a certain way here. And that is a manager part of me. That is a part of me that is kicking in. And then I also have these other religious parts that they do work. They do work when I'm not overtly trusting God with the work that needs to be done. Some of religiosity parts can kind of kick in.
And manager parts tend to go to war with other parts of us.
That's right.
And especially religious parts, my own religious parts. And one of the big ideas in internal family systems is that no parts of us are bad. So all parts are actually there and helpful and good, and what a part does is not who a part is. And so if anxiety shows up in your body, or self-criticism or people pleaser, or this achieve to belong part of you. That's just what it's learned how to do. That's not who it is. And so a lot of times we go to war with our anxiety rather than trying to get to know this part that is learned anxiety and try to understand it, comfort it, and help it. And this is wild. I mean, this is just I know I'm going on a tangent, but it's a law of the universe, right? That like energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be transformed. So this, that's just physics. But then when we think of spiritual reality in that, my head starts to swim in this kind of stuff. But if you think about that in terms of our inner world, if there's an aspect of us, a brain state, a part, whatever language you want to use, that is manifesting in a certain way, like anxiety, you can't kill it, you can't destroy it, you can't just create something new. You have to help it transform. And in spiritual language, this is resurrection. This is what's happening. And so this is, I just think this is how the kingdom works, is that there's something that happens that helps things move from one thing to another.
Yeah.
And in this inner work, we would connect with a part, help it shift the energy. And then what's wild is that sometimes people will I've had this personal experience in my life, and I've had clients have this experience why I keep doing this work, is that the energy that goes into something like anxiety or depression is a lot.
Yes.
But imagine if that energy were to shift, and now that energy is going into other things that are more in line with true self, creativity, speaking, playing, getting better at your finances, and all of a sudden now you have this access to this reservoir of energy that you just didn't even know that was possible.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, this is going to be helpful when we're able to talk about the bus here in a second, and how actually when I read the Gospels now, when I read Jesus and I watch him move through relationships, I actually see him comfort the parts of people that are presenting themselves actually in the story.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Like, I think Jesus is actually with people, and he sees, this is the amazing thing about Jesus, that every time he looks at you, he sees your true self.
Yeah.
And then he kind of puts his arm around or puts his hand on the parts of us that are activated. And I think one of the things that was really special about being with Jesus is, I think that probably was it, like the experience of being face to face with divine love. That is like looking at you and believing in your true self more than you, and is aware of the parts that are sort of acting up, and by divine love and presence, actually helping those parts kind of calm down.
Yeah, that's it.
Calm down a little bit. It's amazing. Let's talk about firefighters, and then we'll talk about the bus. All right. Explain firefighters to us.
So firefighters, as corny as the language is, that is their job. So when your inner world feels overwhelmed, their job is to put out the fire. And so at all costs, they try to bring you back to a state of being okay. And so if there's anxiety, they come in, they put out the anxiety. If there's uncertainty, if there's fear, they come in and go, no, we know how to get rid of that. And so that there's lots of things that could manifest as a firefighter. Addiction is one, self-harm, depression. Like depression, think about it, it means to depress, to push something down. And so that's their whole job. That's oftentimes we also go to war with these firefighting parts. I hate this part of me that does X, Y, Z. Well, really, if we started to shift and go, maybe there's a lot of pain and this thing is trying to comfort, it might start to change how we relate to these whatever tendencies or parts of us.
Yeah.
And rather than seeing them as enemies, we go, oh my gosh, like this thing is putting its energy into caring for me.
Right.
So when
the way it knows how to care.
The way that it knows how. Yeah. And so then once that perspective shifts, and let's say you have a tendency to overeat and you feel that urge in your body, rather than another part of you coming on and going like, you're stupid, you're going to do it again. You go, oh, I know this thing. This shows up when I'm not okay. And then you have enough space to slow down and turn towards it and go, oh, hey, what's going on in there? You all right? We really want to eat right now? Like, there's something else going on. And then that is a game changer. And then because the whole system just starts to change.
Yeah. Again, I'm going to read from this sheet. It says, when a firefighter part has the wheel, you may notice overeating, overspending, over exercising, oversleeping, numbing, soothing, drinking, disassociating. I mean, we can go on and on and on, you know. Firefighters help us survive when it feels like there's no other way. So, you know, even doom scrolling on social media, just constant, you know, plugged into technology can be a way to turn the noise down. And I think that's one way that I've really started to understand firefighters is like this thing that we use to turn the volume down, you know, to put the fires out, you know. I actually think, you know, and in my little inside out, you know, Pixar, you know, imagination right now, I see the firefighters, I have them in me. And I am learning to kind of go, oh, they're out there like trying to put the raging fires out, the stuff that is hurting, the stuff that is stressful, the stuff that is anxious, the stuff that is scary. They're doing their best to help me feel better. It's just time in my growth and transformation to some of them, for some of them to be relieved of their duties, right? So that I can live more into my true self. Okay, so now let's talk about the bus.
Okay.
Because it kind of gets into that whole idea.
It's a good analogy.
Yeah. So, hey everybody, I want to take just a second very quickly to let you know about a couple of things that Tom is doing. First of all, every Monday, Tom sends out an email that he calls Transformation Tips to everybody that has signed up for this email. And I've got to tell you, it is full of wisdom and practical advice on how to experience greater transformation in your life. And, you know, like me, you guys are experiencing Tom's wisdom week after week here on this podcast. And so I would just suggest that you go to pagecounseling.com/tips, pagecounseling.com/tips to get on that email list. And then secondly, if you would like to work with Tom as a client and you are in the Kansas City metro area, go to pagecounseling.com and simply let Tom know that you would like to work with him and get in that pipeline with him. If you'd like to work with Tom virtually, you can do so if you live in the state of Kansas. Also, you can go to pagecounseling.com to learn more about how to work with Tom virtually. But you guys, that's what I have for you. And I just suggest that you guys get in there and get as much of Tom's wisdom as you possibly can. What a gift he is to us. So I'm just going to tell the story the way that you told me in a conversation just a couple of years ago. We were talking about IFS, and you were saying, "Yeah, I kind of imagine this like bus in my mind." And there are times, you know, like if I'm in my best self, I'm driving the bus. You're driving the bus of your life. You're in control. You're steering the ship, so to say. And yet there are other times when maybe you're driving the bus, you hit a bump in the road of life, right? And anxiety shows up from like the third row. And then they're like, hey, Tom, I'm going to take the wheel here for a second, right? And then anxiety gets control. Anxiety starts to, just anxiety as an example, you know, starts to drive the bus. Yeah. And it becomes a very, very different experience. Okay. And before we get too far along, let me just say, I'm talking about myself right now. Okay. I'm talking about my own bus.
Yes.
I have had in my life a real, I've had a relationship with anxiety. Anxiety has been on the bus in my life. And there have been times when anxiety has taken the wheel and it's been crazy. It's been crazy. Yep. And I'm learning, I think, through this work, when anxiety takes the wheel of my life, to, first of all, acknowledge, hey, this part of me is trying to help. This part of me is trying to prevent a future catastrophe of some sort in my life. It's trying to protect me, but it's not helping me now, you know, the way that it did maybe at one point or at one time in my life. Yeah. And so I'm learning how to just kind of, and I think, honestly, it's a very incarnational move on my part. It's where I'm taking the gospel that I believe in and applying it to my internal life, right?
Yeah, I love it. Yes.
And I'm going to anxiety that is driving the bus, and I'm just kind of like just as Jesus would, like, and maybe it's Jesus in me and through me into this other part of me, you know?
I mean, it's a clinical perspective that IFS comes from, but my spiritual perspective goes, I mean, that's what it feels like.
Right. That's what it actually does feel that way, you know? So it is a direct application of the gospel in my life for my true self to go to this manager part and say, hey, thank you for driving the bus. I totally get that you're trying to help me, but I want to grow now, and I want some time behind this wheel. So I'm just going to invite you to go back to your seat, just kindly, and you know, you start to do the work of driving a new way, you know, driving a new way, and in that way, like not letting anxiety, in my case, overrun the bus. You know, How'd I do? Did that
great.
Get at it?
That's it.
Would you describe that any differently?
No, I don't think so. To give credit, the bus analogy comes from a whole nother therapeutic lens called acceptance and commitment therapy.
Oh, very good.
And they have a kind of an analogous kind of parts way of thinking about things.
Yeah, I thought that was just your brain, dude.
No,
which
sorry.
we are going to get into here in a second, the way your brain works.
Dude, I'm happy to.
You have a great story.
I'm happy to share it.
Yeah.
I was going to say one thing. What was I going to say? Yeah, I lost it. I'm not sure what it was.
All right. Well, very good.
We'll come back to it.
Yeah. Well, you know, I have this this piece of paper here, and I'm going to just describe how this works in my own life. What's interesting about IFS, man, is that it's a whole world out there. I literally got this from Etsy. Like, I don't even know how. I don't even know, you know, what am I even doing on Etsy? You know, I somehow found this.
There's great resources out there, now, which is fantastic.
This was a literal PDF that I took and typed into a note on my phone. And now, in my time with God, when I am feeling this stuff really kick up, when I'm feeling this part of me that doesn't feel like my true self kick into motion, and I don't know how to name it, I will start doing some work. And it helps to have this one little piece of paper to help me do the work. So I'm just going to read through this framework real quick, just so that people can kind of know, this is how this could be really helpful in my life, even in my life with God. So, internal family systems parts worksheet. The first bit would be to describe the part. What does it look like? How does it feel inside? What does it do?
And look like would be in your imagination.
In your imagination. What is the purpose of this part? How does it function in my internal system? Why do I think this part even exists? Mm-hmm. What are the strengths of this part? What positive qualities and behaviors does this part bring into my life? What are the challenges or the limitations of this part? What negative qualities or behaviors does this part exhibit? Okay, so we're starting to see the different faces and the different dynamics of these things, right? What are the needs that this part has? That's big.
That's huge.
Yeah, what are the needs that this part has? What underlying need or wound is this part attempting to address or help? What does this part, or how does this part interact with other parts in my internal system? Are there any other parts that are in conflict with this part, or that this part is in conflict with? Again, a huge dynamic of all of this work that we are talking about. Okay, how do you feel about this part? How do I feel about this part? Do I accept this part of myself, or do I reject it? Yeah. Why or why not? And I realize typically that when I get to this part of the practice, I realize that I've done a lot of praying away, certain parts of myself, rather than letting those parts of myself teach me more about the ways that Jesus wants to transform my life, right? And then here's the big question. What does Jesus want this part to know? This is my own line. This was not in the Etsy document. I added this. what does Jesus want this part to know, and how does he respond to this part? How can this part be transformed or integrated into your internal system in a more adaptive way? And then lastly, what changes could you make to improve the functioning of this part? Okay, now look, on any given day, if I have a part of me that kind of solar flares up, and if I go to this document and I begin to work through it, by the time I'm done with it, I have actually had an experience where Jesus has, in a very powerful way, interacted with, calmed down, begin to transform and change and grow and mature a part of me that is not helpful. Mm-hmm. And it is a way that I am experiencing Jesus move me more toward healing in my life. Now, you have a story, right? Yeah. You have a story that is pretty intense, right? But
yeah, it's kind of wild.
Yeah, but when you told me this story, I was like, I want more of that kind of healing in my life and in the lives of the people that I love and serve. And so, dude, I've asked you if you would tell this story. You said you would.
Yeah, I'll tell it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. All right, everybody, pull up a chair. This is a story time with Tom Page.
So my story. A couple caveats. I'd say that IFS has so many great tools, and there's so many adaptations like this that are great. I think if Dick Schwartz were here, he would say, yes, all of these things, do them. And if you really want to do a deep dive, like go to a therapist trained IFS,
sure.
Person who was proficient in IFS.
Yeah.
So that's my little caveat.
Yeah.
But this is all great introduction stuff.
Yeah.
So another caveat before I tell the story, because it's, the first time I was exposed to any kind of IFS at all, I was like, this stuff is phony. Well, come on. Like, what, Man at Fire? So I was like, no.
Right.
And so if you're listening to this going like, this is the craziest stuff I've ever heard, I get it. I 100% get it. And then I had an experience with it. So I really got my first clinical taste of internal family systems by participating in a trauma workshop with Bessel van der Kolk. He's the seminal researcher in trauma and healing trauma. Wrote this book that's now like gold standard called The Body Keeps the Score. And he just in that highlights what are effective, proven trauma therapies and all different kinds of things. One of those was internal family systems. And I hadn't heard of it in the clinical context at that point. And I thought, well, this is interesting. So I just started doing some researching. I hadn't even worked with, I don't think I had worked with a therapist at this point. But I got to a point where I was ready to just try this stuff out. And so when you are trying to connect with a part, so we look for what's called a trailhead. A trailhead could be anything that expresses in you that feels extreme. And so if you react in anger, or you shut down and you get quiet, or you have a compulsive behavior, an addictive behavior, something like that, that's not necessarily the part itself, but it is kind of evidence that something is going on. And so for me, in my own life, anger, and even disruptive anger, and I would never do it at people, but I do it on my own. I do it in the car. Explosive anger was a thing in me that would show up. And I thought, I want to try to get to know this. And the way that we get to know, like our body speaks to us, that parts talk to us, in quotes, talk to us, are through like various sensations and experiences of our inner world. So thoughts, it's one way. You can hear a thought in your mind, and that might be feedback from a part. Emotions, so the felt sense of emotions in your body. Other sensations in your body, so tightness, pressure, pain, comfort, warmth, memories, urges. These are all things that constitute the language of our inner world. Well, I was never taught
Yeah.
that my whole being was talking to me
Right.
all the time.
Yeah. Pete Scazzaro, actually, in Emotionally Healthy Spirituality, which is a resource that's being widely accepted now, he actually says that our emotions, our feelings are major prophets, not minor ones.
That's
that
really
they actually are speaking to us. But man, you're talking about a world that the church has not accepted. We pray away our feelings. We don't listen to them, and so I appreciate this, man. I appreciate where you're going. And yeah.
Okay, so here's what happens. So in my personality, and everybody, when you get to know your inner world, everybody does that different. It's unique to the person. So someone may be very body centric and they may feel things in their body. Other people may not be as body centric. They may have thoughts. They may have images in their mind that show up. It's like, well, when I imagine the angry part of me, what does it look like in my mind? For me, I am very visual. And so that's how I started. I said, well, let me go to this part of me. I kind of closed my eyes and I go, what does this part of me look like? And at first I just imagined there's like a dark cave in the distance. And on your sheet, it asked this question: how do you feel toward? That is like a litmus test for how much of yourself is present. Because just like the presence of Christ can handle anything, the self can also. But when we are relating to other parts, other times, like in an external family system, other parts get in the way of that work, and we don't realize it. And so when we ask that question, how am I feeling towards this part? What that's doing is helping you go, oh, are other parts of me present and relating to this? I don't like this fearful part. I'm afraid of going into that cave. I don't want to do that. So before we do that, we got to take time, and this is where you work with a therapist to really do this work, to make sure that other parts are relaxing and okay. So I kind of sensed, I'm like, yeah, no, I actually feel okay. I can go towards this cave. And so I'm like, all right, cool. That means I got the green light to keep going forward. As I go into this cave in my imagination, there's like this minotaur who's like, there's a little fire and this minotaur is just throwing stuff and just...
Dude, what's a minotaur?
A minotaur is like a half bull, half man mythological creature.
Oh, let's go. Okay.
And so it's like, but he's like hulked out and angry and raging. And I'm just letting this play out in my imagination. I'm like, I have no idea if any of this means anything, I'm just like, well, let's go for a ride. And so this is like tripping with no drugs. So I was like, okay, well, I'll keep following the protocol that I've learned. And I start trying to ask questions to this minotaur thing. How are you? What's going on? What do you want me to know? I'm not getting anything. Like all I sense is this thing raging almost like it doesn't know that I'm there. And in my intuition, I just go, well, maybe I'll pull Jesus into this thing. I said, Lord, I'm new at this. I don't really know how to use this tool very well. Can you come be with me? And what I sensed was him coming. This is where it gets weird. I just let my imagination go with it. That he goes, that thing has to eat me. And I'm like, I don't know. That's pretty weird. Like, and I could feel my body react, but I know that means other parts are present. So I turn towards that. I go, hey, can you just relax in my body? Like, can we try this experiment? Are we okay enough? And if it was a no, I'd honor it. If your body says no, you got to slow down with this work. But my body at that time was like, yeah, okay. So I was like, all right, I'll let this play out. And I go, all right, Lord, whatever, like, let yourself be eaten by this minotaur. And so gets eaten, and now he's on the inside. And then I hear him going like, you need to be eaten too. And I was like, this is a bad idea. I don't know about this. And I'm like, well, let's keep playing it out. So I go, I'm okay with this. And so I imagine myself being just kind of eaten by this minotaur. And then what happens next is this image in my mind, or there's this space where there's Jesus, me, and a 12-year-old boy. And he's beside himself with sadness. And he just looks at me and he goes, I didn't mean to hurt anybody. I didn't mean to cause any trouble. I just needed to make somebody who could help me deal with this. And then it got out of control. And it blew me away. And then I started asking questions to this boy and like, well, what happened? Where were you? And then like images, memories, felt sensations of family of origin started coming back. And it was like, oh my gosh, this makes complete sense. Like why you would adapt and create a thing. So does this mean that there's really...
And who was the boy?
Me.
Yeah.
Younger me.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah.
And he, you know, there was sorrow, there was embarrassment, there was fear. And so then I think actually, now in hindsight, I think I actually had been working through a therapist, because I wouldn't have known all of the protocols I've had to do this stuff. That helped him when we get to an exiled part of us, the work is called unburdening. And so the pain that they carry, we actually help these hurt younger parts of us unload, unburden that stuff, so they can be free and reintegrated back into our more whole system. And so then at that part, I started doing some work to help the younger boy be free of his sadness, or feeling why he needed to have this anger in the first place.
Yep.
But it took a lot of another piece of the puzzle, which is called witnessing. And for many of our parts, whether they're protective or hurting, they just want to be known. Like I've worked with people who have parts of themselves that are like suicidal tendencies, and then other parts are extraordinarily fearful of these, and that's understandable, because if it's driving the bus for too long, it can really cause damage. But not once have I worked with someone's a protective, that's a firefighter part, that when they got to know it, that it actually wanted to hurt them. Not once. And once that clicked for that person, and they go, oh, you're trying to help me not be overwhelmed anymore. You're trying to provide a way out where this other part of me is feeling hopeless. And as a response, all you see is the hopelessness. You don't see true self me. That's the thing, is when our parts are so activated, it drowns out self.
Yeah.
There's not access to self. And so it is an actual practice to learn how to access this self energy, which is, compassion, curiosity, calm, clarity. And so, anyway, and in my own experience with this, it just started to radically shift how I relate to myself.
Right.
And so now I'll have a thought, a feeling, self-doubt, whatever it might be. And instead of, I used to have other parts that would show up and then, hate that part or want it to go away or
shame
me. Yep. And now I just kind of go, oh, you're ringing me. It's like, you don't have a phone in there, but you do. You have a phone, and it's how you express in my mind and my body. And I want to learn how to pick up the phone and listen. Yeah. Because when I go like, oh, that's why you're in there, it takes a lot of the air out of the balloon.
Yeah. So, man, I was thinking about this. I knew we were going to be having this, conversation today, and earlier this morning I was thinking about this, and I knew that this story would be big and colorful, and again, you're describing the kind of thing that, again, in a lot of our heritage, we've learned how to pray these things away, right? And I think anything that sounds unconventional, we're typically like, I don't know.
Well, it is weird.
Yeah.
I'm not even
right, but this is
one of the weirdest things.
But this is also my point, right? I was thinking about the New Testament, or thinking about Jesus in the New Testament. I'm thinking about all of the times when he healed people in really weird ways, Yeah. And I was just thinking about this morning. I just felt like the Lord reminded me. He was like, hey, don't forget that I'm the one who went up to a mute boy and stuck my finger in his mouth to put my fingers on his tongue, to bring his speech back to him. Or I reached down and got dirt out of the ground and literally spit in it and, like made it into mud. And I was at a youth camp one time, and the guy did this, like the youth speaker guy did this. It took him 30 minutes to make his mud
spiritual spit
out
paste.
of his spit and mud out of the dirt of that campground. It took him 30 minutes. And I was like, oh my gosh, Jesus stood there for 30 minutes making this mud paste out of his own saliva and dirt, to put on somebody's eyes. That's the weirdest thing. And these are not universal prescriptions. Thank God that that's not happening in the body of Christ right now. We're not like, selling, Middle Eastern dirt because it's special for, pastors to spit on and people in prayer lines, like that. It's Jesus does these things very uniquely to bring healing. And I just thought about your story, and I was like, yeah, unconventional, maybe a little strange by what we tend to think about, but also very, very, very like Jesus to meet you this way. And, so this is part one, I think, of this internal family systems talk. I think we, in my mind right now, have kind of got a part two. We'll do that here in a second. But what I'd love for us to do, we do this every episode, is just hold a little space, okay? And so I'll lead us through this one today.
That's great.
Yeah. So listen, we're just aware that in all of our conversations and in every episode, we may be going into some terrain of people's hearts that might kind of stir up just things in them. So we don't know where you are today, don't know what this episode may have kicked up for you, but we want to just hold some space to be with you, so that before you go, back into work or time with your family or whatever it is that you are entering into after this, that you feel settled and at rest, and you feel like the Spirit of God has maybe spoken to you, challenged you, but also been kind to you in the end. So, yeah, hey, let's just take a deep breath today. Let's do that again. Just a deep breath, belly all the way full. Even as we've been in this conversation today, when we were talking about managers, exiles, firefighters, maybe you were even able to articulate or find an actor on the bus of your life that takes the wheel a lot of the time. Maybe that is even happening here right now. We just want to today, at least, with the kindness that is in us because of the Spirit of God, the beautiful good news of the kingdom of God that is welcoming the rule and reign of God in every environment that we are aware of. That part of us that holds that close and dear. We just want to comfort and put our hands on whatever's at the wheel right now. It's whatever's at the wheel. We just want to say, let the peace of Christ be with you. Peace of Christ be with you. We're going to give you just a second now as we just hold you in the tender embrace of God to just find your breath. A little moment that feels like the first moment after winter where the sun hits your skin, that there you are. Warmth moment with the sun. That's the way it is with Jesus in a moment like this. There you are with Him. We bless you with that today. In Jesus' name. Amen. You guys, thank you so much for dropping in today. If you have any questions or comments, you can reach out to us at gatheringnetwork.org/healthychurchpodcast. It always means so much if you will rate and review the podcast any place where you happen to stream. Credits for today's episode are podcast writers are myself, John Shirley, and Tom Page. Sound design and editing, John Shirley. Show intro music, Light Up the Night by Brasco. Advertisement _track, Well Enough Alone by Reveal. Holding Space _track, Threads by Acreage. And all of these have been licensed through Soundstripe. Once again, we thank you so much for giving us your time today. God bless you, and we'll see you soon.